Welcome back to the Other Side podcast with Michael Phoenix. Today's guest is someone who's difficult to describe in just one sentence. I met with Warren Roberts, the founder and CEO of Living Legacy Forest. But beyond the title, he's a visionary, a dreamer, a deeply creative person who wears his heart on his sleeve and is not afraid to fail. This conversation was raw, honest, and incredibly inspiring. We spoke about the importance of human connection, following your heart, and the power of imagining something and making it real. Warren has a unique way of seeing the world, and whether you agree with everything that he says or not, you can't help but be inspired by his passion and authenticity. I think this episode will resonate with anyone who's ever felt different, anyone who's chasing a vision that others don't yet understand, or those who are searching for a deeper meaning in life. So wherever you're listening from, thank you for being here. This is episode 2 of The Other Side with Warren Roberts. Ladies and gents, welcome to episode 2 of The Other Side. I'm here today with the man, the myth, the legend, Warren Roberts, co-founder and CEO of Living Legacy. Many of you watching this podcast will have heard of Mornington Green. I'm super excited to have Woz on the show today. Woz, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, mate. Great to be here.
You've had an amazing journey that's brought you to where you're at today, and I definitely want to hear about how you came up with the concept of living legacy. But for those watching at home, I'm sure they'd also like to hear where it all started. So let's take it back to, tell us a little bit about your younger years. You know, where did you grow up, and what was your childhood like?
Well, I grew up in Bayside. My dad's a dentist, my mother's a naturopath. I hated every single second at school. I loathed, and I still loathe the education system, absolutely despise it. Hated school, largely because I struggled at it. Even when I tried, it was hard for me to learn. But I fiercely knew what I wanted to do, and eventually just found a way to do it.
So even at a young age, you knew exactly what you wanted to do. What was that? What were you thinking?
Well, I didn't know that I was going to create Living Legacy, but I was enamored and fascinated by the idea that you could imagine something and make it real. To me, that was real magic. And you know, when I saw buildings, to me that was something that someone imagined and made real. And I thought, oh, wow, you know, and I was like, so in my younger years, and I was always fascinated with value. I'd come home from primary school, get home, and there'd be a catalogue on the table, and I'd cover the prices and I'd guess the prices, and I loved, I was just fascinated with how people decided what things were worth, you know, and I was also fascinated with the idea of imagining things and making them real. And so at a young age, I decided I wanted to be a property developer because I could imagine things and make them real. And it wasn't about money, and it wasn't about developing things. It was that I could imagine things and make them real. And so when I pretty much failed high school, and I got a TR of like 37 out of 100, I was devastated, and I was crying because I couldn't do what I wanted. I couldn't get into any university that would let me do property and imagine things and make them real. You know, it's devastated.
So what did you do when you finished school? What happened next?
I was at a friend's birthday party in Mentone. Everyone was just got their grades, and like, oh, I'm going to do law at Melbourne. I'm doing, you know, accounting at Deakin, and everyone was getting their grades, and and I was crying my eyes out at the party. Everyone was getting their dreams are coming true, and I was just finding out that I'd just failed my family. I had no future, and I wasn't going to be able to imagine things and make them real. This guy comes up to me. He said, "What's wrong, kid?" And I said, "Oh, I've ruined my life. I can't do what I want to do." And he goes, "Don't worry. It's more important to want to do something so badly that not being able to do it makes you cry." I'm like, how does that help me at all? I'm like a fat kid in a cake, not a fat kid in a chocolate cake store not being able to eat the cake. It makes it even worse, you know? And he goes, listen, I'm the CEO of Heinz and Foster's. I know what I'm talking about. All of these people that look like they've got the grades that are going to make them happy, they don't want to do the thing as much as you. And they might end up doing something that's good or okay or get some validation, but none of those people want to do it as badly as you. It's more important to want to do something so badly that you cry than to have the grades to do it. I'm like, how does that help me? And he goes, listen, life's really simple. Just always follow your heart, never take your foot off the path. Go to TAFE, get into uni, do the job, get the experience, follow your heart, never take your foot off the path. Can you do that? I can do that. Went to TAFE, struggled, barely passed accounting, failed it twice, fucking, and had a good time. No matter what I was doing, even when I was struggling, I always had a very good time. Always went out a lot, always had a lot of fun. Got through TAFE, got into university, got my dream job becoming a developer. It took 10 years of struggling through learning, because I've struggled to learn my whole life. Another fucking 10 years of struggling, sucked a lot of fucking, not actual dick, but it was tough. It was really like going to school was tough, university was tough, really struggled. Finally got my dream job, almost got fired from that job. It was on my second warning, and I had to just believe in myself and do the job my way, because I was going to get fired anyway if I kept on listening to people. And I did it my way, made that company huge amounts of money, incredible success, and the first time in my entire adult life had achieved something. I'd pretty much failed my entire life until that day. Honest truth. Like from a young kid to that day, most of my life was failure. And the only reason I was able to make it to that day is because that guy told me to follow my heart. And being able to follow my heart allowed me to fail and get up again and again with joy and with passion and with excitement, because I was doing what I loved. We celebrated with the company I did the partnership with this big fancy dinner in the city. Everyone sitting around this big table. And I'm sitting there knowing that those words took me to that moment. If I wasn't given the words, I wouldn't have made it to that moment. And I was sitting there going, I wish I could thank the guy that gave me those words. As I wished that, the guy that gave me the words sat down next to me. He was working with the company we partnered with. And I got to thank him. And then I told him that my dream was to create Living Legacy, because I wanted to imagine beautiful things and make them real. I didn't want to just imagine housing estates and suburbs and make them real. I wanted to imagine beautiful forests and make them real. And then he said yes, and that was how Living Legacy started.
Who was that guy that you're referencing here? Do you remember his name?
Neville Filkey. He's my chairman now, Neville Filkey.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how did you first meet him?
That was it, at the party.
Yeah, that was the first time you'd met him.
That was the first party, and between that moment and 10 years, I've never heard of him again.
Isn't that amazing that interaction with him and his belief in you and his words of encouragement was sort of what fueled you on? That's amazing.
Yeah, it's impossible, you know, and but that's the thing. When you follow your heart, impossible things happen again, again, and again, you know, and if you don't, the world becomes empty and grey and numb and lifeless, and it's no point. You know, like I've got so much appreciation for all the people that have been mentors and have guided people to follow their hearts, and instead of just doing things that they think will make other people happy.
Yeah. Why is it so important for you to follow your heart?
Why is it so important for me to follow my heart? Because that's how the world works. It's an actual understanding about how your operating system works and how the world works. You know, it's like everything has a heart. The earth has a heart. You have a heart. Every person you have has a heart. And when you're in your heart and you're working with your heart, you're more connected to everything, and this impossible things can happen. You know, magic can happen, and the impossible can happen. Doors open, but part of that isn't that everything's perfect and easy. Part of that is that you can fail and get back up again with joy, again and again and again. And the world's a competitive place. If you had 1 million people and 999,000 of those people are just doing something not because they're madly passionate about it, almost all of them will give up after a few failures. And with bitterness and regret and remorse, and they'll do the next thing. The one person that's deeply and madly and passionate about the thing, they'll get up 1,000 fucking times, again and again and again, with joy and passion and excitement, because they're not there for validation. They're there because they genuinely want to be there and they love it. Their heart's in it, you know? And so that's why it's important to follow your heart, because it's how the world works. And if you're not working with your heart, you're not working to your full capacity in the world. You're running at, 1%. So, you want to put your heart in it.
If there's someone out there that's sort of sitting there and, they're in a situation, whether it be like yourself, where they're in school or uni and they're struggling, or they're 10 years into a career and they're going, you know what, I've kind of gone down the wrong path here, my heart's not in it, I'm going through the motions. What sort of advice would you give to someone in that situation? How do you one part is to acknowledge that you're not following your heart, but then how do you make steps to get on the right track?
I'm not here to judge other people, and I appreciate that life can be hard and challenging, and sometimes it's safe or it's easy, but if your heart's not in it, if you're not following your heart, you're not alive, and there's no point to anything you're doing. Everything's dead and empty. It's fucking. The story when the devil fell in love?
No, tell me.
So it's from a scene in Devil's Advocate with Al Pacino, and he says, one day the devil looks up from hell, sees this beautiful earth girl, falls in love with her on the spot, but he knows she'll never love him because he's the fucking devil. He spends half an eternity carving out a beautiful wooden mask. He puts it on, he goes up to earth, he woos her, eventually he seduces her, at which point in time she says, I love you. He's so jealous and enraged with the mask she's fallen in love with that isn't him. He pulls out his carving knife and kills himself because she's fallen in love with the person he had to pretend to in order to be loved. Right? And so it's like, if you're not in your heart, if you're pretending, are you alive? Are you living? You're living for another day. You're living for an outcome. You're living to get something from someone, and you know it.
Yeah.
How do you get back to it? I think the things that you were fascinated with as a child will guide you as to where your heart is. For me, it was the imagination and the idea of being able to make my imagination real. And so, when you look at who you were when you were under 8, what were the things that brought you to life? What were the things that you were fascinated with? They're the things that you can follow your heart. It doesn't need to be a fancy career or, it doesn't need to be grandiose. But find out what fascinated you as a kid and just do a little bit of that. Allow yourself to be fascinated. And then now you're fascinated in the world. When you're fascinated in the world, everything you look at, feel, touch and smell, it comes to life because you're fascinated in it. If you're not fascinated in it, you can look at something beautiful and it's dead and empty. You know? You want to be fascinated, right? Don't you?
Absolutely. And I'm just thinking now, remembering the last time you were down and we were walking through the Magnolia Grove and we were having a chat. I can't remember exactly what we were talking about, but you sort of just paused for a moment and took in the beauty of the flower. And I think when you are that deeply present and living from your heart, it makes you magnetic. It makes people want to be around you because it is so rare. Unfortunately, it's rare for people to really live true to who they are. And so I think just by you being who you are, it's actually really inspiring for those around you.
Comes back to my fucking hatred of school. It is, because there's these fascinated kids and they're fascinated with the world. And then they're like, no, you got to read about the fucking history of some bullshit that you're not fascinated in.
Yeah.
Oh, now we're going to test you on it. It's like, but they're not testing them on what they're fascinated in. And it's like, if you're lucky enough that some of the shit that they're trying to fucking force you to learn is mildly interested and you get good grades, you're so lucky, good on you. But if you're actually fascinated in the world and it's not part of the school curriculum, it's a fucking disaster, you know? And even worse, it's like some of the stuff they were trying to teach, I was fascinated in it, but not in their part. And so I wasn't able to, the fascinated part of me every year was fucking smothered to death until my soul was almost fucking dead. And that's what happens. You get to fucking 18 and you don't even feel like you got the right to be fascinated in the world, let alone to nurture your spirit or your soul and to fucking give it life. And so how do you get back to it? You have to try and remember what you were fascinated in before you were 8.
Yeah.
Because it's good chance it's been fucking destroyed. You know, most people are so possessed by the idea of owning things that barely in possession of their own soul. And we're so outwardly focused in trying to get things and own things that we lose touch with our soul and the parts of our spirit that's fascinated.
Yeah.
And if we were more focused on what was fascinated, we'd be more full of life and energized and sharing our life and our energy with the world rather than just trying to fucking take it from everything.
Yeah.
So, you know, your fascination is like a kite. And when you tie or tether yourself to that kite, it carries you up and with joy and excitement and energy and it through challenges and obstacles and, you know, find your fascination, you know.
If I was sitting with, 7 or 8 year old little Woz and I said, what fascinates you? What was it in those really young years that you found fascinating?
I was a daydreamer. Just a hardcore daydreamer, mate. Like people would be trying to fucking tell me things or get me to remember things, and I was just like, just daydreaming, just imagining. You know, I was just like, I don't fucking care about what you're fucking telling me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm fucking like, that's how much I hate the education system.
I'm sensing it.
It goes against my fucking entire grain.
Yeah.
So what's the value in being trained to think like 8 billion other fucking people? What's the value in being trained to think like in the next few years that it'll be the most damaging thing that could happen to a person is to think, to be limited in the function of thinking like 8 billion other fucking people, that a robot can fucking can do your curriculum in a minute. It's a fucking disaster. I hate it. And then they snuff the fucking fascination out of people and they just do what they're told, do what they survive. And it's why? Because it's like you spend your whole fucking life at school being rewarded for complying. And it's, complying to learn what they taught you, and then, oh, look, he's a good complier. You're not getting grades for being smart, you're getting grades for complying.
I think what you're saying has always been true, but it's more true now than ever with this, in the age that we're living in, where there is no shortage of information, right? So no one's going to value a person that's just spent years and years to memorize all this information. It's about what are they passionate about, what are they bringing to the world. So yeah, it's getting more and more relevant as we move into this new age. But I was thinking, we sort of got to the point of the journey where you mentioned that you'd shared with, was it Neville?
Yeah.
You shared with Neville that you'd had this concept about living legacy.
Yeah.
What happened from there?
Well, I was like, I have something I've imagined.
Yeah.
I want to make it real. He's like, follow, and he's like, follow your heart. And he's like, okay, I'll jump on board. I'll be the chairman of your new company, and I'll use my knowledge and understanding of growing global businesses to help you build yours, and so you can make your imagination a reality. And we then embarked on the process of creating an organisation, and we hired a scientist, and we killed hundreds of trees, and it didn't work. Initially it was a failure, and it required us failing lots and lots of times before it was successful. And eventually the trees started growing and it was a success. But the fascination allowed me to lose lots of money, fail for many months, and still be massively excited every day, right? Yeah. And not give up because things were a little bit hard. And I was still excited and I was still fascinated.
Yeah.
And so 2 years later, the science had worked, and the trees were growing, and like, oh wow. And so we started partnering with some of the biggest government cemetery trusts in Australia, and we started building the business from there. And I was lucky enough that my brother was able to come and help. He could see that like I can barely spell. I don't know the difference between a vowel and a vowel and a noun and a verb. I still don't know the fucking difference. I can't do long division. I don't wear shoes most days of the year. 360 days of the year I don't wear shoes. Don't use a calendar. Massively fucking limited in my functionality, and yet still I've been able to create something extraordinary.
Extraordinary is an understatement. And before we sort of go, I definitely want to unpack a little bit more about what you've created. But I think more so, what's more interesting than how you built the business and went on to grow it to what it is today is actually the story behind it and where the idea came from. Would you be comfortable sharing a little bit about what prompted you to start Living Legacy?
So was it, so you go back, fucked up school, got into TAFE to get into uni, right? Get into uni, and one of my best friends at uni, she died, I can't remember what year it was, but she died when we'd just finished uni. And she was one of my closest friends. And I never got the chance to just tell her how much I loved her as a friend and what that meant to me. And maybe that was because she was a female, and it's hard to communicate that you love someone as a friend without it implying that it's a romantic thing, And to me, friendship means more than... Friendship is the most important thing, because it means you love the person for who they are. A lot of people have romantic love and it's gone the next day, like, it's meaningless and purposeless. And I didn't have the words to say that love meant more to me than anything. And I didn't get the chance to say that. So when she died, I was stuck with that inability to tell her what she meant to me, And when I was at the funeral, people were like, "Oh, Warren, how are you? You okay?" And I was like, I thought I was good because I didn't cry. And it was weird because, the truth was I was avoiding feeling the grief, and I avoided it by not feeling. And it worked at the start because I was just like, I just got on with my life and it was fine. But it was like cutting off from your feelings is like converting a piano into one note. And over the next few years, I realized I was trying to play the symphony of life with one note. And that life became numb and grey and boring and dull. And it's hard to say, but I was mildly depressed or depressed, whatever you want to call it. I was cut off from my feelings. I was unable to feel. And it wasn't until I started spending time in nature that I started to feel again. And I'd look at a beautiful flower and another note in the keyboard would come, ding, and I was letting myself feel again. Yeah. And I'd look at it, the roots in a tree or the sunset casting through a petal, another note, another feeling. It's letting myself feel and feel again and again and again. I spent like fucking thousands of hours just looking at nature with awe, falling in love with the world again, getting the notes on my piano. There was one year I spent thousands of hours in nature. I don't know how the fuck I held at my job. I was sleeping in trees. I was falling in love with the world again. And one day, I allowed myself to feel the grief that I'd been avoiding. And I cried my eyes out. But the thing was, the grief that I felt more alive from that dark note that I'd been avoiding than I had my whole life. And I'd been avoiding feeling the grief, but I'd actually felt more alive with it than ever before. And that's when I realized that grief is a gift that allows you to feel more of life. It's another note on your piano that you never fucking had. Yeah, it's a dark note, but it's a bigger piano. It's a greater symphony. And I'd been avoiding that gift. And so in that place of feeling more alive than ever before in my life, because I'd received the gift of grief, that's when I had the idea. I was like, wow, if other people became a tree, then instead of them becoming depressed and numb like I did, they can have the gift of grief and a greater capacity to feel love and alive, a greater capacity to appreciate how beautiful this world is and how precious their life is, so they make the most of it. And it's like, I was like, wow, I'm not gonna fucking honor a person's life by being depressed and mourning. How the fuck is that honoring anyone's life? I'm gonna honor that person's life by living life fiercely. I'm going to honor that person's life by making the most of every day and knowing how precious and sacred this gift is. That's how I honor life. And that's how, when we create living legacy trees, it's like people get to honor their other people's lives by living life more fully, not by being numb and grey. Like the grave they become, they honor life by becoming full of life and passion and rigor and appreciation. So that's where the idea came from. By receiving the gift of grief and wanting to pass it on so other people don't become numb and depressed like I do, so that their life is enriched by the gift of grief.
As I can only imagine how challenging it would have been for you to lose such a close friend, but what an amazing gift that she was able to give you to have this experience and to now go on to provide a space and an experience for thousands of others to find healing in nature. I'm just thinking now, you lost one of your closest friends. You're in a dark place. I love the analogy of the single note piano, and you found healing in nature, and you've had this light bulb moment of, surely I'm not the only one that finds healing by being present in nature. How did you go from that to what was the next step after that?
All right, so like now I've got the idea, but I've also, after 10 years of fucking failing, 20 years of failing, I finally got my dream job, all right? And so I avoided following my heart. This is the thing, like I followed my heart, allowed me to be the trail, but now I was avoiding following my heart because it required me to do something I had no idea what to do. Yeah. I don't know anything about, I didn't know anything about soil science or trees or creating a business, because property development's not, it's business, but it's not, there's a lot of things that it's missing to be able to do what I needed to do. Yeah. And I avoided the call for years. I wanted to do it. That's what my heart wanted to do. But I had a safe job. It paid me well. I was imagining, I was creating, and I was able to avoid creating Living Legacy for several years. I stayed in my safe spot, which is fundamentally often failing to choose life. You know, safe and comfortable often isn't feeling alive. Sometimes it is. I'm saying always take risks and be a fucking psycho, but in this instance, I was avoiding following my heart now. And then I bought this farm in Tulern, and as I bought it for the developer I was working for, and as I was driving out towards the gate, this giant eagle lands in front of the car. Its wings were as wide as the car. And I'd never seen a bird from the wild that close, and it was amazing. And I was just like, wow. And a voice inside me, just basically, without me fucking prompting it, basically said, like, I made an agreement with myself that I wouldn't use my imagination to destroy nature, because I realised that the farm that I bought will become a housing estate, and that was the bird's home, it was its land, and I just signed a contract to destroy it. And so a voice inside me just made a promise that I would stop using my imagination to destroy it, and I would use it to create and restore nature. And that's a promise I made to myself. I didn't think of it, I just heard a voice inside me if I can make that promise. So.
Had you ever heard a voice like that before?
Only one other time. A year later. Okay. A year later, which must have been 2012. So that must have been about year 2011. Yeah. And then, so made that point, and then from that moment onwards, I'm like, okay, I'm going to quit my job, going to quit my safe space, and I'm going to do something I have no fucking idea how to do. But it's okay, because guess what? All you have to do is follow your heart, never take your foot off the path. So I had a mantra and I knew it worked. And part of it is you don't need to know how anything works, because nothing's going to go to fucking plan. Right? Nothing's going to go to plan. Don't try and work out how to make it work. But you got to do it, and you got to do it with your heart open. So I quit that job. You know, from that moment on, I finally did it. And I quit the job and I started creating Living Legacy. And that was a turning point. That was a turning point. But I guess somewhere between that timeline, I met Neville. Yeah. Got to thank him. And there was delays between meeting him and saying yes, and registering the company, and starting it. And that's somewhere along that's the timeline. Yeah. Only other time I've heard that, went to Uluru with my friend Nathan, and we put our hearts on the earth, and had this voice inside me said, like, I will serve you. And I fucking hated it. And it's like my whole life I wanted to see things with my third eye, or hear things and not, I like the idea of mystical experiences, but and then I had this one, and it's fucking voice inside me saying, I'll serve you. I don't like the idea of having to serve something, and it was basically saying, I'll serve you to the earth. And I hated the idea, loathed it, and had resistance to it. But what I came to learn is that, as an individual in my ego, I see myself as being separate to the earth. And when I said I serve you, it was to the part of myself that isn't the individual, isn't the ego. That we're all a part of the earth. We all return to the earth, and I'm serving that other part of myself. Not just fucking Warren the ego. That's the only other time I've heard the voice.
So you were driving out of the property, you've seen this big eagle that's landed in front of you, and you've had this voice, and you've basically made a promise to yourself to serve the earth in a sense. What was the next step there to go from that to what you're doing today?
We hired a scientist.
Okay.
We tried to find a way to turn ashes into plant food. We killed hundreds of trees because no one knew how toxic it was. We got the lab test back, and it's like same pH as bleach. It's 1 million times too high for most trees. It's got a cup of salt, devastating to photosynthesis. And we didn't just want to create a situation where you could just put the ashes in a box and a tree grow near it. We didn't want to create a situation where you just dilute the pollution in a way so that trees can grow around or through the pollution. It's the ashes had to become the tree, so that when someone looked at a flower, the person was a part of that divinity, and they could, instead of connecting to what they lost, they could connect to the beauty their life created. And maybe just for a moment, time can stand still. They can be in their heart, and they be connected to nature, they can be connected to divinity. And that person's life can give them this beautiful gift of feeling more alive than ever before. And it had to be real. It couldn't be a trick. And it was hard to do the science because you had to become the flower. It couldn't be a shortcut. It couldn't be some fucking biodegradable urn, or you couldn't just scatter it near it and go, it's okay. Because look, we know when you scatter ashes, they don't biodegrade. It has to be, anaerobic digestion. It needs the microbes in the soil need to break it down and turn it into nitrogen and potassium, so it can become the tree and live on through the circle of life and create the air we breathe. So it was a lot of work, it was a lot of failure, it was a lot of fascination. We hired the scientist. Eventually, it did work. And then that was our first success again. And from there, then we painted it, and then we started partnering with cemeteries, and the business started.
So you had the concept, you've got the business structure in place, you've got the scientist, you've got it all figured out in terms of the processes and the systems. What was it like actually making that a reality and getting your first site and actually starting to see families interact with this experience? Talk us through what that was like.
Our first trees were in cemeteries, and I hate, sometimes that sounds like I'm bagging cemeteries. I'm not. They're our partners. Cemeteries are my ancestors are buried in cemeteries. They're incredibly important places, but they are changing the way that we leave the world. Most cities have a cemetery footprint 10 times the size of the city. It's not sustainable. You can't just turn the whole planet into a cemetery. It doesn't work. So, and I'm just being real about the whole process, and is it how people want to be remembered? It's not, and no one's really thought about how we're remembered and the impact it makes, and so we're trying to change that. We started in cemeteries, and then people just they started complaining and saying, look, we don't want a tree in the cemetery, we want it in the forest. And so we went out, and Bruce Jeffries in Perth donated a 20-hectare farm in Western Australia to us. And that was the start of Living Legacy creating its own forests and being able to sort of, imagine something and make it real. It was. Yeah. And so, that was an amazing start. Thank God Luke came along, and he saw me struggling, and he helped me, create the business, and shoulder to shoulder, we dug holes and planted thousands of trees till our hands bled, and we created that beautiful forest at Wellington Dam. And, it's just thousands of jacaranda trees, and in Perth, that was our first forest, and that was an amazing experience in itself. Creating something from nothing with no resources, and people believing in us enough to donate their land.
Do you remember what it was like when you saw the first family actually have their loved one's ashes infused? What was that like?
Yeah, it was a mother that had lost her son, and he was quite young. He was in his early 20s, and she chose a jacaranda tree for him. And yeah, it was a moment when the imagination became real. And the first tree was there, and it's one of my favourite trees. I got to see her being able to let go a lot of that grief. I'd see her shift in her shoulders and her body language and her posture. I think I got to see the peace that she got from feeling like she did the right thing for him. Yeah, it was a really great experience.
How long after that, when you first got that property at Wellington Down, how long after that did you acquire this property here in Mornington Green?
Maybe like 4 years.
Okay.
I guess we just started to get a sense of the momentum and the interest and the excitement that we were like, oh, okay, let's up the ante.
Yeah.
And then it was the middle of COVID. The world was ending. It sounds dramatic to say that now, but in the middle of COVID, every day you'd start on the news, oh, there's so many deaths, there's people in stretchers falling out. It really looked like a disaster, like the world was ending. We all know it wasn't, but that's what we were told. We were so fascinated in what we were doing. We were like, we've got to get a golf course. So we bought an entire golf course, and now we've started turning it into 6,000 of the most beautiful trees on the planet.
If someone is listening has just happened to stumble across this podcast and they have no idea what we're talking about and have never heard or seen Mornington Green, how would you describe this place?
It is 6,000 of the most beautiful trees on the planet, planted together in groves to just create the most profoundly beautiful experience you could imagine. Imagine walking through hundreds of flowering pink cherry blossoms, petals at your crown, petals at your feet. Just look around, it's like, wow. If you've ever seen a single beautiful cherry blossom, wow. And to be in a cherry blossom forest, wow. And to walk through a cherry blossom forest into a crepe myrtle forest, and now it's a yellow version. And then to walk through that forest into a ginkgo forest or a jacaranda forest, and each time just to be surrounded by like immense divine and profound beauty, until you get to the tree that the person you love's life's created. And now you're standing at the person's you lost's tree, and their life's created something beautiful. And you look at the flower or the petal, and their life's there. And their life can create a moment where time stands still. And you're in your heart, and the world's a beautiful place, and you realise what a gift it is to be alive. And the gift of being able to feel life more fully is more present in that moment. You can feel life so much. The colours are brighter. Instead of the world being dull and numb and grey and empty, it's like it's vivid and bright. Your heart's beating and you're alive. And that person gave you that gift. And that's what it's about.
And now we're obviously several years into the journey, and Living Legacy is continuing to grow quite quickly. And you've got multiple different sites. You can't be here all the time, but when you do come and visit Mornington Green and you walk the gardens and you see families having picnics, bringing their dogs, bringing their kids, having that experience that you probably saw in your mind's eye however many years ago. How does that feel to actually witness the manifest reality of what you've only dreamed of? What does that feel like?
It's the greatest privilege to dream something like that, and then to share it with people. You know, like everyone is everyone here, they're walking through my dream. It's the most beautiful thing I can dream of, and all these people are walking through my dream, and their lives are going to create these trees in the most beautiful thing I could imagine. It's quite a privilege. It's quite an honor. It's like I had the courage to dream the most beautiful thing I could imagine and make it real. And then you get to share it with all these people.
Yeah.
Like, I talk to people when they're still alive and they're planting their tree, and they tell me what tree they're going to be in, and they plant the tree, but it's when, you know, and they shake my hand, but it's like, I know one day I'm going to be holding that person in my hands, you know, and it's like the brevity of you know, of that honor. It's such a sacred gift, you know, for people to trust us with that honor. It's such a gift.
Yeah. I have to often remind myself as I'm walking around the gardens, as beautiful as it is currently, it's only going to get more and more beautiful.
No.
It just blows my mind sometimes. You speak about these mini forests. I mean, there's nothing like it. You can go to a beautiful botanical garden, and sure, they have a variety of species, but to create these miniature forests where you're walking through the canopy, all while, you know, remembering your loved one, it's just, of course I'm biased, but I just think it's such a unique and life-changing experience that we're offering families here. And I wonder, where do you see Living Legacy moving forward?
We'll have a forest in Sydney this year, probably Queensland as well. You'll see more forests. There'll be more and more creativity, more imagination, more fascination. Our forests are very different. Like in Perth, it's a conservation forest, and in here it's a botanic garden. So we're not trying to just like create a cookie cutter and go again and again and again. Each forest is created with meaning and purpose. It's connected to the land in a sacred way, you know, because of that voice. You know, we'll serve it, and so I always listen to that voice, and we honour the earth, and we really connect to the land and the spirit of the land each time we create a forest. But you'll see forests that create habitat for an endangered species. You'll see more of them. You'll see more botanic gardens. You'll see more giant flowers made from thousands of flowers. You know, like the giant sunflower.
Yeah.
You know, basically you'll see things that connect people to their divinity, the gift of being alive, with profound beauty. That's what you'll see more of, you know, and just more ways to do that with flowers. I mean, how can you like look at a flower and not feel beautiful and alive? And it's the gift, you know. You know, it's funny. It did start when I was like maybe 12. Not the idea for Living Legacy, but the heart and the essence of it. I was in detention at school, at Mentone Grammar, and the headmaster was coming around. I had to find a book to look like I was reading. Grabbed a book from a bookshelf, open it, and there was a line that changed my life. And the line from that is at the heart of why I do create Living Legacy. The line in the book said, "To see the world in a grain of sand and heaven in a wildflower, to hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour." And when I read that line, it was like, wow, you know, like someone else in the world knows what it feels like. That's why I daydreamed and didn't want to fucking study, because that's what the world was like to me. It was fascinating. It was beautiful, and time stood still. They're fucking trying to teach me fucking maths in this divine miracle gift of a world, you know? And when I read that line, I was like, wow, someone knows what it's like to be alive. And to me, nature's a doorway to that moment. Because when you look at a flower with wonder and awe, you're opening a door to that moment where time stands still. And you see the world as a grain of sand and heaven as a wildflower. You can hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity for an hour. And at the heart of my heart, when people become trees, I want their flowers and their trees to be a doorway to the moment, to those divine moments, you know.
Couldn't have said it better myself. I'm sure you and I could talk for hours and hours. I do want to bring it to a close for now. No doubt we'll do a part 2 when you come back. I want to just say personally, thank you so much for being you. For those listening, I think it's important to know that this is not just a business for you, and I can speak from personal experience to say, yes, we're growing, but at the heart of Living Legacy, both you and Luke and the other team really lead from the heart and lead from integrity, and it's just it's an absolute joy and an honour to be a part of. It's not just a job, it really is exciting to be part of something life-changing, and I think your passion, your enthusiasm, your warmth, your love, it's contagious, and I'm just so glad that you are who you are, and thank you for that.
Oh, thanks, mate. Really, really appreciate it. It's like none of what we created could happen if people didn't believe in us and follow it, and you know, Neville and Luke and you and all of the staff that believed in me, and because of that we can make it real. It's like there's no way I can't create it. Any of this, I can't tie my shoelaces. So thank you so much for, you know, really believing in me and coming on this journey with us, you know.
It's a joy. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being you. Bring your fascination. Because that's what it's about, you know. It's like your fascination. That's your spirit. You know. And so thank you for bringing your fascination and your spirit to this. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you.
Love you, buddy.